Hi everyone, this is the first video of how to teach your horse Liberty. I'm going to be showing you how I teach my horses all the maneuvers I like to have them know before I start Liberty. So the first thing I always start with is getting my horse used to a whip or whatever I'm going to use. Right now I'm just using dressage whip. So when I start with the pivot, I always walk into my horse waving my whip, showing them that I'm asking them to move over. Once they move over one step, I'm going to ask them to stop. Asher moved over twice just because he's so sensitive. When I walk into my horse, I wave my whip, but once my horse is moving, I just like to apply constant pressure you don't have to touch them if your horse is really sensitive. Sometimes you can kind of tap their shoulder if your horse isn't very sensitive. I'm just slowly building up my pivot within every single step, asking for a little bit more every single time. Once you have completed one side, we're going to move over to the other side. This is usually the side that most horses are not as good at. Same with Asher, he's not quite as good at this side. If you need to, you can hold onto the halter a little bit higher up. That way they can understand a bit more what you're asking them to do. But later on in the future, we are going to ask to do this without any pressure on the halter. So this is hopefully what you're going to see. At the end result, I'm going to walk into him and his outside foot is going to move first, not the foot that's going to go over. And I'm wanting to see the back foot that's closest to me to stand still as much as possible. So when I teach yielding the hindquarters, I look at the hindquarters and flick my lip a little bit or a tap, and then just try to get one step. I'm going to do the same thing again, trying to get at least one more step out of them. And then I'll try to get one or two steps on the other side. Doing the same thing, just looking at the hips, flicking my whip, or just a bit of tapping. I mainly just want to get to the point where I don't have to do anything other than just look at their hips and they're moving over. When I start the side pass, I usually like to start along a fence. And I also like to make sure that my horse knows how to pivot and yield at the hindquarters. That way they have good body control. That way this makes it so much easier. When I start with a horse that doesn't know how to side pass, I always start one step at a time. So usually I ask the shoulder to go over first and then the hip. Shoulder, hip, until they can start to put it together. When I do shoulder and hip at different times, I like to ask for the shoulder, get one step, stop, and then let the hip follow behind. If your horse isn't very good with confined spaces, it is possible to not do this along the fence. It does make it harder and a little bit more difficult to understand. You just have to make sure that you very well have that body control. It helps so much when you're doing this. So just like the side pass away, I'm going to start on the fence, but instead I'm going to ask my horse over to me. So I'm just going to tap on the opposite side and ask them over. And I usually just do one step at a time, and this one's a bit more difficult than the side pass away. So make sure to have lots of releases in this one, and take your horse off the wall completely, walk around, come back, and do it again. And when doing this side pass, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to ask a little bit on the front, and then stop, and then ask the back to come over. Again, we want to have lots of body control for this one too, making sure that our horse's shoulders can come over to us and their hips can come over to us. And if your horse isn't very good with confined spaces, it is possible to do this one off the wall. It is very, very difficult. I feel like it may just be easier to get your horse more used to being in a confined spot, but it is possible. When I teach my horse to back, I always start at the fence, but I forgot to do that today. When I teach my horse to back, I like to have 2 whips, and I look at my horse's chest, and I just kind of put a bit of pressure towards their chest to ask them to back up. One step at a time, but Asher's giving me more than that because he's pretty sensitive. Once your horse is good, you can slowly start adding more steps to the back up. And for the liberty purposes, you can also start adding more distance to your backup. So standing still and just asking your horse to continue to back up. And this is Asher's backup. He's really soft. Like, your horse doesn't necessarily have to be this soft, but we want a nice soft backup. When I teach the at the shoulder backup, I like to just start at the shoulder and then take my whip around and kind of back my horse up. You can either do a waving motion, or you can tap the chest, or you can put solid pressure there, just depending on how sensitive your horse is. So when I teach my horses how to drop their head down, I'm going to take a little bit of pressure on the lead rope until they drop their head down just a little bit, and then I'm going to release all pressure. And the same thing when I do pull pressure, I just do a little bit of pressure where the pull is, and I just ask for their head to drop just a little bit, and then I release all pressure. When I teach my horses how to soften their neck, I just pull a little bit of pressure on the lead rope and ask them to bring their head over just a little bit. This one can be difficult for some horses and easier for others. It just depends. Asher has a really, really soft bend of the neck, softening, and it doesn't take much pressure at all to get him to do so. That's why I'm using lots of soft pressure here.